Hi guys, I'm trying to experiment a little and I'm doing something similar to the videos that I did with Macbeth, but these are different because you're able to see me, obviously. But I thought that I would read out loud since people find that helpful in class. I thought that I would read out loud on these videos and see what people think. So we're in book the third, chapter 11, and chapter 11 is called Dusk. Think about what time of day dusk is, right? It's the time right before night. So this is a progression that Dickens is trying to set up for the beginning of the end, pretty much. You know, if we think about what darkness and what night represent. So we're sort of at that point. So in my book, we're on page 323, Dusk. The wretched wife of the innocent man, thus doomed to die, fell under the sentence as if she had been mortally stricken. She uttered no sound, and so strong was the voice within her, representing that it was she of all the world who must uphold him in his misery and not augmented, that it quickly raised her even from the shock. So this is Lucy. This is right after Darnay has been sentenced to death in 24 hours, and she's trying to draw strength from it. She's saying goodbye to him for the last time as well. The judges having to take part in the public demonstration out of doors, the tribunal adjourned, the quick noise and movement of the courts emptying itself by many passages had not ceased, when Lucy stood stretching out her arms toward her husband with nothing in her face but love and consolation. If I might touch him, if I might embrace him at once, O good citizens, if you would have so much compassion for us. There was but a jailer left, along with 2 of the 4 men who had taken him out last night, and Barsad. The people had all poured out to the show in the streets. Barsad proposed to the rest, "Let her embrace him then. It is but a moment." It was silently acquiesced in, and they passed her over the streets and the hall to a raised place where he, by leaning over the dock, could hold her in his arms. "Farewell, dear darling of my soul, my parting blessing on my love. We shall meet again, when the weary are at rest." They were her husband's words as he held her to his bosom. "I can bear it, dear Charles. I am supported from above. Don't suffer for me. A parting blessing for our child. I send it to her by you. I kiss her by you. I say farewell to her by you." Obviously, little Lucy is not there at the trial. "My husband, no, a moment. He was tearing himself apart from her. We shall not be separated long. I feel that this will break my heart by and by, and I will do my duty while I can when I leave her. God will raise up friends for her as he did for me." So she's sort of admitting there that she thinks she's going to die of a broken heart, which is similar, if you remember, to what happened to her mother. Her father had followed her, and would have fallen on his knees to both of them, but that Darnay put out a hand and seized him, crying, "No, no, what you have done, sorry, that you should kneel to us. We know now what a struggle you made of old. We know now what you underwent when you suspected my descent, and when you knew it. We know now that natural antipathy you strove against and conquered for her dear sake. We thank you with all of our hearts and all of our love and duty. Heaven be with you." So obviously, if you're Minette, you're feeling pretty guilty right now, right? Because it was your words from your letter that just pretty much sealed the deal. So he feels really terrible. We know that there's a risk of him going into a relapse, but Darnay tries to kind of comfort him and say that it's not your fault, like this is not you. Her father's only answer was to draw his hands through his white hair and wring them with a shriek of anguish. So again, the danger is that he thinks he's 105 North Tower again. "It could not be otherwise," said the prisoner. "All things have worked together as they have fallen out. It was the always vain endeavor to discharge my poor mother's trust that first brought my fatal presence near you. Good could never come of such evil. A happier end was not in nature to so unhappy a beginning. Be comforted and forgive me. Heaven bless you." So again, he says that it's not Minette's fault. He was drawn away, his wife released him, and stood looking after him with her hands touching one another in the attitude of prayer, and with a radiant look upon her face. So Lucy, the golden thread, she has that like light about her, in which there was even a comforting smile. As he went out at the prisoner's door, she turned, laid her head lovingly on her father's breast, tried to speak to him, and fell at his feet. So as soon as he's brought out, then like the old Lucy comes in and she faints. So it's important to know that she is unconscious at this point. So then, issuing from the obscure corner from which he had never moved, Sidney Carton came and took her up. Only her father and Mr. Lorry were with her. His arms trembled as it raised her and supported her head, yet there was an air about him that was not at all of pity, that had a flush of pride in it. "Shall I take her to a coach? I shall never feel her weight." He carried her lightly to the door and laid her tenderly down in a coach. Her father and their old friend got into it, and he took his seat beside the driver. So they are headed back to the apartment where they live. When they arrived at the gateway where he had paused in the dark not many hours before to picture to himself on which of the rough stones of her street her feet had trodden, he lifted her again and carried her up the staircase to their rooms. There he laid her down on a couch where her child and Miss Pross wept over her. Don't recall her to herself, so obviously that word jumps out at us. He said softly to the latter, she is better so. Don't revive her to consciousness while she only faints. Oh, Carton, Carton, dear Carton, cried little Lucy, springing up and throwing her arms passionately round him in a burst of grief. Now that you have come, I think you will do something to help Mamma, something to save Papa. Oh, look at her, dear Carton. Can you, of all the people who love her, bear to see her so? So, we know that little Lucy likes Carton a lot, and so she sees Carton, and so she immediately goes to him and says, I know that you're here to help my mother. I know you're going to do something to help, because he's that kind of guy. This is the most important part. He bent over the child and laid her blooming cheek against his face. He put her gently from him and looked at her unconscious mother. Before I go, he said, and paused, I may kiss her? It was remembered afterwards that when he bent down and touched her face with his lips, he murmured some words. The child who was nearest to him told them afterward, and told her grandchildren when she was a handsome old lady, that she heard him say, a life you love. So, this is where, something's on my screen, this is where this whole story starts to come together, and so I love this. So first of all, we have a retrospective moment, right? We have old lady Lucy looking back on this moment, which lets us know, number one, she doesn't die. Madame Defarge doesn't kill her. The revolution doesn't get her. She makes it out. She has her own children, and then she has grandchildren. And that this is a story that she tells them over and over again. And one of the things that she hears Carton whisper in her mom's ear when he goes to give her a kiss on the cheek is a life you love. So that reminds us of way back in chapter 13, where Carton was confessing his love, saying what Lucy does for him, and that he would sacrifice himself for not only Lucy, but for a life that she loved, anybody that she cared about. So, in fact, I want to read you the exact line. So, back in chapter 13, in our book, page 143, obviously, he says, think now and then that there is a man who would give his life to keep a life you love beside you. So that's what's happening. Actually, that's on page 148. So that's what's happening. So this is where we've started to figure out what the plan is, and if you're following along, you've probably figured out the plan too. So Carton is going to switch places with Darnay. Of course, they look alike. He can get in with Barsad's help. So that's how it's going to work. When he had gone out into the next room, he turned suddenly on Mr. Lorry and her father, who were following, and said to the latter, you had a great influence but yesterday, Dr. Manette. Let it at least be tried. These judges and all the men in power are very friendly to you and very recognizant of your services, are they not? Nothing connected with Charles was concealed from me. I had the strongest assurances that I should save him, and I did. He returned the answer in great trouble and very slowly. Try them again. The hours between this and tomorrow afternoon are few and short, but try. I intend to try. I will not rest a moment. So Carton's encouraging Manette to go and try to do something to help, and we'll talk about why in a second. That's well. I have known such energy as yours to do great things before now, though never, he added with a smile and a sigh together, such great things as this. But try of little worth as life is when we misuse it. It is worth that effort. It would cost nothing to lay down if it were not. I will go, said Dr. Manette, to the prosecutor and the president straight, and I will go to others whom it is better not to name. I will write too, but stay. There is a celebration in the streets, and no one will be accessible until dark. That's true. Well, it is a forlorn hope at best, and not much the forlorner for being delayed till dark. I should like to know how you speed, though, mind. I expect nothing. When you are likely to have seen these dread powers, Dr. Manette, immediately after dark, I should hope, within an hour or two from this. It will be dark soon after 4. Let us stretch the hour or two. If I go to Mr. Lorry's at 9, I shall hear what you have done, either from our friend or from yourself. Yes. May you prosper. So he wants Manette to stay busy, because if Manette's not busy, he might blame himself and he might relapse. So he was trying to keep his mind busy and keep him out of his way. He doesn't want him at the prison. Mr. Lorry followed Sidney to the outer door, and touching him on the shoulder as he was going away, caused him to turn. I have no hope, said Mr. Lorry in a sorrowful whisper, nor have I. If any one of these men or any of these men were disposed to spare him, which is a large supposition, for that is his life, or any man's to them, I doubt if they durst spare him after the demonstration in the court. And so do I. I heard the fall of the axe in that sound. Mr. Lorry leaned his arm upon the doorpost and bowed his face upon it. Don't despond, said Carton very gently. Don't grieve. I encouraged Dr. Manette in this idea because I felt that it may one day be consolatory to her. Otherwise, she might think his life was wantonly wasted or thrown away or wasted, and that might trouble her. Yes, 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 returned Mr. Lorry, drying his eyes. You are right, but he will perish. There is no real hope. Yes, he will perish. There is no real hope, echoed Carton, and he walked down with a settled step downstairs. When Carton echoes what Lorry says, he will perish. Notice he doesn't say Darnay will perish. The reason he says he is because it's him. He's talking about himself, and he walks downstairs with a settled step because it's official. He's at peace with it. He knows what he has to do. So, hope that was helpful.